The sun reflected brightly off the polished cars lined up outside Summit Ridge Motors, one of the most successful car dealerships in the state. Inside the showroom, salesmen in sharp suits moved from customer to customer, smiling, shaking hands, and closing deals. But that morning, one man walked into the dealership who didn't look like the typical buyer. He wore worn jeans, an old jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His shoes were dusty, and he carried himself quietly as he stepped into the showroom. To the sales staff, he looked like someone just browsing. To them, he certainly didn't look like someone about to buy a car. What they didn't know was that the man was Michael Grant, the actual owner of Summit Ridge Motors. Michael had built the dealership from a small used car lot years ago into a multi-million-dollar business. But recently, complaints had been pouring in. Customers claiming salespeople were lying about prices, adding hidden fees, and pressuring buyers. Corporate reports showed everything was running smoothly. Michael wasn't convinced, so he decided to see the truth for himself. He walked slowly between rows of shiny vehicles until a tall salesman named Derek finally noticed him. Derek approached with a forced smile. "Can I help you?" he asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't very interested. Michael nodded. "I'm looking for something reliable," he said. "Maybe a used sedan." Derek glanced at Michael's worn clothes and sighed quietly. "You know these cars start around $25,000, right?" he said. Michael smiled politely. "Yes, I understand." Derek shrugged. "All right then." They walked toward a sleek gray sedan parked near the center of the showroom. "This one's a great deal," Derek said quickly. "Low mileage, perfect condition." Michael inspected the car carefully. "Looks nice," he said. "Has it ever been in an accident?" Derek shook his head immediately. "Nope. Clean history." Michael looked thoughtful. "Do you have the vehicle report?" Derek hesitated for a split second. "It's clean," he repeated. "You don't need to worry about that." Michael nodded slowly. "All right." They sat down at Derek's desk to talk about the price. "The sticker says $21,000, Michael said. Derek leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said casually, "that price doesn't include the dealership package." "What package?" Michael asked. "Mandatory protection plan, service warranty, documentation fee, and dealer preparation." Michael raised an eyebrow. "And how much is that?" Derek typed quickly on his computer. "That brings the total to about $27,800. Michael blinked. "That's quite a jump." Derek shrugged. "Standard dealership stuff." Michael leaned forward. "And the accident history is still clean?" Derek nodded confidently. "Completely clean." Michael studied Derek for a moment. "Interesting." Just then, a young employee walked by holding a stack of papers. One of them slipped and landed near Michael's chair. Michael bent down to pick it up. It was a vehicle inspection report. His eyes scanned the page. Front-end collision, repair estimate, insurance claim. Michael slowly placed the paper on Derek's desk. "What's this?" he asked calmly. Derek's face stiffened. "Oh, that old paperwork. It says the car had a major accident." Derek quickly grabbed the paper. "That report is outdated." "But you said the car was clean," Michael replied. Derek leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look," he said quietly, "if we told every customer every little detail, we'd never sell anything." Michael stared at him. "So you lie." Derek smirked slightly. "Let's just say we simplify things." For a moment, Michael said nothing. Then he slowly reached into his pocket. "Before we continue," he said calmly, "I think you should see something." He placed a small black card on the desk. Derek glanced down casually. Then his smile vanished. Printed clearly on the card were the words, "Michael Grant, owner, Summit Ridge Motors." Derek's face turned pale. "You're the owner?" Michael nodded calmly. "Yes." The showroom suddenly felt very quiet. Derek stumbled over his words. "Sir, I didn't realize." Michael held up his hand. "That's the problem," he said. "You shouldn't need to realize who someone is before being honest with them." Several nearby employees had begun watching the conversation. Michael stood up slowly. This dealership was built on trust, he said. Not hidden fees. Not lies. Derek looked like he might collapse. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Michael sighed. I came here today to see how customers are treated. He looked around the showroom. And now I know. Then he turned back to Derek. Effective immediately, you're no longer representing this dealership. The surrounding staff froze. Michael picked up the inspection report. If a customer asks a question, he continued calmly, they deserve the truth. He slipped the paper into his pocket. And today, he said, the truth was revealed. Michael walked toward the showroom exit, leaving behind a room full of stunned employees who had just witnessed the moment everything changed.